And in that Old Testament passage, we then can understand what Jesus was talking about. And I would recommend that the party who has the question just turn to that passage in the Old Testament, and I think it perfectly answers your question.
Thank you. The next questioner. I hope there will be no need to cut off any questioner. Please.
I first would like to thank Mr. Deedat for his very excellent and intelligent exposition of the question.
And now the question.
I'd like to ask Professor Clark about what he thinks of the nature of Jesus and whether he was God or the Son of God or the messenger of God. Because in his talk, he said that when Jesus was about to bring Lazarus from the dead, he said, "Thank you, so that you may believe, so that they may believe that you have sent me." He's talking to God. So, okay. And also on the cross, in Professor Clark's exposition, he's saying, "Father, in thy hands I commit my soul." Now, isn't that enough evidence for Professor Clark to convince him that the relationship between Jesus and God is the relationship between a God and the messenger?
Okay, thank you. The question was directed to Mr. Deedat or to Professor Clark. Just make it clear. Okay.
Jesus, when he said, "Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit," he was speaking in the spirit of all that he had done through a long time ministry, in which he said he did nothing except what he saw his Father do, that the words he spoke were not his own, but the words he heard his Father speak, and he claimed only to be relating to God as his Father.
Okay. Thank you. We're really running out of time. We might allow 2 or 3 questions more. The first one.
In 1974-75 on television, Professor Anderson, who ironically taught Mohammedan law in the Council of Legal Education, London, and University of London, called Muslim...
brother, would you please put your question directly?
It is.
Yeah.
And pagan, because they did not believe in Trinity. May I ask Dr. Floyd what is his view about Muslims, as they do not believe and recognize Trinity, as well as the crucifixion of Prophet Jesus? Do you consider Muslims as pagan or the people of the book, given also the fact that at the time of the Prophet many pious Christians freely accepted Islam?
Okay, thank you. Professor Clark.
Well, it really doesn't matter what I think, it just matters what the book says. And as we've been looking in the book, I think we can come to whatever private opinions we may have, but I think of my brother Ahmad as of one whom in the New Testament was mentioned as one who was not far from the kingdom.
Okay, the next question. No injection from the floor, please. The next speaker. Would you please come close so that you could be...
Assalamu alaikum. My question is direct to Brother Ahmad Deedat. Well, yesterday, day before yesterday, on Friday, I attended his meeting in South Hall, and he was speaking about Prophet Muhammad's arrival is mentioned in the Bible. Therefore, why Christians, theologians don't talk about...
if your question, I'm sorry for injection here. If your question, brother, relate... Yeah, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt. Just a minute, please.
Muhammad's arrival is mentioned in the Bible.
In fairness to you...
Why Christians, theologians don't talk about him?
Just a minute, please. In fairness to you and to everybody else and to the brother who was turned down, the question is not relevant to the topic. Would you please move on? Would you please move on and let the next speaker ask the question? Relevant to the topic? Go ahead briefly. Just put it... Professor Clark.
True gospel of Jesus Christ, which is called the gospel of Barnabas, is not
okay, would you...
accepted by
Thank you for your question. I ruled the question out of order. It's not relevant to the topic. Would you move on, please? Would you move on? Would you move on, Jazakallah? Next speaker.
Talk about this man.
Would the next speaker please ask his question? We have to be fair and firm. Am I doing something wrong? I'd like to get indication of the way I'm conducting questions. Am I unfair? Go ahead. Briefly, brother, please.
I would like to say that I'm grateful for this opportunity, and my questions are actually two. Number one, if the Quran is indeed from God, does it contradict itself in as much as it says,
Okay.
Therefore, Jesus was born, he died, and he rose again. The second question, if God...
Oh, I'm sorry. The rules of the game is to ask one question and get the back so that other people will have a chance.
All right.
Thank you. Now the question is directed to Mr. Deedat. Mr. Deedat.
Thank you.
The verse in question is وَالسَّلَامُ عَلَيَّ يَوْمَ وُلِدْتُ وَيَوْمَ أَمُوتُ وَيَوْمَ أُبْعَثُ حَيًّا, which translated means, so peace is on me, the day that I was born, the day that I die, and the day that I shall be raised to life again. The day that I die, it is not that I died. It's not died, it's in the future.
We have time for a maximum of 2 or 3 questions at most, because there is a few minutes at the end for concluding remark. The next question, please.
If we admit,
Can you get close to the mic, please?
if we admit that Jesus died to expiate sin, what was the curse handed to Adam for committing sin? Is it not that women would bring food with pain and men would have to work for the bread? And is that finished in this story? Does the crucifixion help it? The next question I would like
No next question. No next question. Thank you. Professor FloydClark, have you got the question?
Sorry, but I have one
Sorry,
question.
we have to respect the rules. The question of the brother.
Only one question, please. I have one question.
No second question. Please get in the back if there is a chance. Thank you. Please keep the quiet. Keep the order. Keep the order, please. Wait a minute until the question is answered. Professor Clark.
Again, I'm not sure I understand the question. Did you get it?
What was the topic? I can't remember. If you tell me.
Something about sinning and a
Oh
man
yeah,
and a woman.
he said that if Jesus died for our sin, and the Bible said that because of that original sin, man was destined to labor for his work in the book of Genesis, and woman would suffer the pregnancy and childbirth. How is that consistent then? If Jesus died for our sin, and still women are going through this suffering, and men are working for it.
Well, I think the question that has been asked concerning the role of the woman who has been suffering since since the beginning when Adam and Eve fell, and the woman has had this role of punishment because she disobeyed God. I think that question is very far from our discussion tonight, but in answer to this, we do know that the New Testament teaches that all creation was brought under bondage when man sinned, and that bondage will not be redeemed until the end when Christ redeems the world.
I think we'll have entertain one more question because we are running out of time. We have only 4 minutes left. The last one.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
Everybody has a question that is one sentence, but we have 50 sentences waiting. Go ahead.
I like to ask Professor Clark, in the book of Hebrew, chapter 5, verse 7, it says, who in the days of his flesh, when he had offered up prayers and supplication with strong cries and tears unto him, is God, that was able to save him from death, D-E-A-T-H, and was heard in that was he feared. Wasn't a clear indication that he was saved from this? Thank you very much.
Before the answer of the question, I have to apologize by asking the brothers or sisters who are waiting in line to forget it. We are sorry, we are already 10 minutes behind time. Did you get maybe? It's there are concluding remarks, so we can't take that. Would you please, sorry, could I ask those brothers who are standing here to please be seated? There is no more time. Professor Clark.
The Hebrew writer makes it quite clear that Jesus came as a man into the world to live as a man and to learn obedience. And though he was God's prophet in the world and God's son, yet there were things that he had to do common to man, and that he had to learn what it means as a man to have to obey.